Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be looking at the Saturn-Mars conjunction, which is coming up on the 10th of April. And the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because it's going to be marking a new 25-month cycle between Saturn and Mars. And those are really descriptive about what to expect in the next 2.5 years in regards to some type of challenges. So we will dive into that. Now, if you are wondering how it might play out for your rising sign, then you might want to consider signing up on my YouTube membership program. You just have to push join button and then you have to pay a little bit of a fee, and then you will get additional 10 videos a month. And another announcement I would like to make, and that's going to be about the course that I'm going to be doing about the 12th house. We will be looking at the signs on the 12th house, cusp, the ruler of your 12th house, planets in the 12th house, so that you can master your 12th house in the best possible way. If that's what you are interested in, then you might want to go on my website, AstroViktor.com, and you want to check out the full program. By the way, I am a Western astrologer, in case you are wondering. So I don't use Vedic techniques. I'm more of a traditional reader, but I tend to be mixing this with some modern elements as well. So let's get started with this Saturn and Mars new cycle. First of all, I want to give you an overview about the Mars-Saturn cycle because this is an exciting one. So we call it in astrology as a synodic cycle. And it becomes a very sensitive point in your chart. So the synodos, which means traveling together, it's a Greek word, and planets are going to be making a conjunction at one point of your chart. Now, this cycle is going to start on 14 degree of Pisces. We've got a conjunction happening between two planets that lasts until the next conjunction. And the next conjunction is going to be happening in the sign of Aries, and that's going to be taking place sometimes in 2026, April time. So until then, the Saturn-Mars cycle is going to be very active for you. So I'm going to give you some major degrees to start with. So we've got the conjunction happening on the 10th of April or 14 degree of Pisces. So this becomes a very sensitive point in your chart. Do you have any planet between 13 to 15 degree of Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, or Virgo? If you do have, then the next 25, 26 months is going to be very prominent for you. Now, we're going to have, on the 16th of August, we're going to have the first square happening between Saturn and Mars, and that's going to be taking place on 17 degree Gemini to 17 degree Pisces. So that becomes also a very sensitive degree in your chart. And then we're going to have an opposition happening between these two on August 1st, 2025. And that's going to be on 1 degree Libra to 1 degree Aries. And the last square is going to be happening 25 December 9th on 25 degrees Sagittarius to 25 degree Pisces. So these are your sensitive degrees. So to summarize on them, 14 degree Pisces, 17 degree Gemini, 17 degree Pisces, 1 degree Libra, 1 degree Aries. And the last one is going to be the 8 degree Aries when the new cycle starts, but we're going to talk about those in 2 years' time. So let's see what this cycle is about. So first of all, what to look for in a synodic cycle. What sign do they occur? What house does it fall into your natal house? And does it trigger any point in your natal chart, especially by conjunctions, oppositions, or squares? I would recommend using the Ptolemaic aspects, which are conjunction, opposition, squares, trines, and sextiles. Now, we've got different types of sensitive degrees in our chart, but why are we looking at basically these squares and oppositions? Because everything is kind of like related to the sun and the moon cycle. So, we've got 8 phases of the sun and the moon. We've got the conjunction, and then we've got the waning, crescent, gibbous phase, and so forth. So the same applies to other planetary alignments as well. We've got 4 waxing phase and 4 waning phase. But the pivotal moments are always the ones that are squares and oppositions. Typically, those are a culmination point of whatever happens around the conjunction and some type of crisis situations when the squares are taking place. Now, the new moon phase of Saturn and Mars is always about beginning, start, initiations, and intention settings. So you might want to be looking at what is going on in your life around 10th of April, 2024, because you can be planting the seeds. And that gets escalated sometimes in August, and then it gets highlighted again in 2025 August for you. And then 2025 December, when we have got the last square happening between those two. So when we are working with 2 planets, the major idea would be that we need to be blending them. We need to bring them together. We need to bring Saturn and Mars, somehow making them as a giant planet. And then when you do not do that, obviously, naturally speaking, Saturn and Mars are malefic planets. They have got a lot of destructive energy around them, so they can make us struggle a little bit. Now, why Saturn and Mars cycle are so unique? One of the reasons why they are so unique is because every 30 years, this conjunction happens in the sign of Cancer. And Cancer is the fall position of Mars and the detrimental position of Saturn. So the very last time when Saturn and Mars met in the sign of Cancer was 2004, May 25th. So this would be a bigger cycle. And by the way, that took place on 11 degrees of Cancer. Now, the new conjunction, so we're talking about a 30-year cycle, and then we've got these sub-periods with Saturn and Mars. So this one is going to be trining that 2004 May 25th conjunction there within about 3 degrees. Now, the previous cycle, for example, it happened in the 8th sign from Cancer. It was in the sign of Aquarius. So, and therefore, because it happened 8th sign away from from Cancer, it can have kind of like an 8th house type of feeling. So, okay, so it might sound a little bit confusing. So basically, you look at 2004 May, what happened in your life around that time in your Cancerian house. And then every single conjunction between Saturn and Mars is going to be happening in the next sign. Every 2 years, every 25, 26 months later. So in 2006-ish, it happened in the sign of Leo. 2008-ish, it happened in the sign of Virgo, and so forth. So it always goes into the next sign. So this cycle is going to start in the sign of Pisces, 9 signs away from Cancer. So it's going to have a lot of 9th house type of feelings to it, which is about learning, studying, travel, but also something to do with being opinionated, how much we listen to others, how much we believe in ourselves, and a little bit of a soul searching as well at the same time. Now, we had 2 cycles, by the way, in the sign of Aquarius. One happened in 2020, 31st of March, and that was happening on 0 degree of Aquarius. And then we had the new cycle starting around 25 degree of Aquarius, 25th month later. But I'm not going to talk about the previous ones, but clearly because it happened 8th sign away, we went through loads of kind of transformation. That's what the 8th house talks about. Negatively speaking, this would be about power struggles. What type of power struggles we are experiencing. Now, let's look at what Saturn and Mars cycle talk to us about. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention. The Mars-Saturn cycle always takes place approximately 22-27 degrees away from the previous ones. So if it's going to be happening, let's say, on 8 degree of Aries, then the next cycle is going to be happening in 22, 27 degree away from that 8 degree of Aries. So it could be happening somewhere around 25 degree of Aries to about 2 degree of Taurus. Now, I didn't look at where the 2028 conjunction is going to be taking place, so I didn't do that. But if you want, I can actually give you information. But anyway, that's going to be just a new cycle, so I don't think it's important at the moment. So what does Saturn and Mars cycle represent? Mars attacks, and Saturn is the planet of frame. So we are attacking the frame. Now, it could be a political frame, for example, that we do not agree with the political upheavals in our life. And it makes us very sensitive because it's in the sign of Pisces. Or with Mars, you put energy into something, and Saturn is the planet of achievements. So how am I going to achieve something in life? Let's say if it's this Pisces cusp falls into your 10th house, then it's putting all your energy into something that you want to achieve. But be mindful, because Pisces, first of all, is a feminine sign, and it can be swayed around a little bit. Obviously, it's a mutable energy, so our goals are changing significantly from one moment to another. And I feel like what Saturn does here is that it wants you to ground yourself. It wants to say no to Mars, because Mars is a competitive planet, right? Mars runs ahead and it has got all the plans. It wants to achieve something very quickly. And then Saturn says, slow down, Tiger. We need to do that slowly. We need to do that. We need to have a plan. If you want to achieve something, you're going to have to ground yourself. This combination could talk to you about depression as well, especially if it falls into your 6th house, for example, or even in the 1st house as well. Mars is the planet of anger. So this could talk to you about being angry towards the frame, the political situations, or about being angry also with the boss or authority figures in your life as well, because you feel like Saturn is actually holding you down. Like a boss is telling you, no, you're not going to get the promotion. Let's say if it happens in your 10th house. And then what am I going to do with that? Or this could talk to you about fighting with the government, fighting against our own reality. Saturn represents reality. But it's in the sign of Pisces, which is not necessarily the most realistic sign of all. So definitely the next 25, 26 months, this is going to be a topic to fight against something that we feel it's not real. And then we want to show what reality actually means to us. With Saturn and Mars, we are fighting against some type of the way how the society operates. Because Saturn is society, it's a social planet. And the society is run by certain type of peoples, right? But Saturn and Mars is extremely good for endurance sports, cardiovascular type of sports especially, or running long distances. So if it happens in your 1st or the 6th house, this could talk to you about, yes, you want to get into shape and then you're going to fall in love with sport, or you want to lose weight and all those type of things. Or Mars, which represents operation, knives, and Saturn represents your teeth. So this could talk to you about dental work as well. This cycle, again, especially if it falls into your 6th house, then you might be expecting that you're going to have some, let's say, knee replacement, or it's going to be, some dental work that you want to be doing. Also, Saturn-Mars cycle could talk to you about power cuts. Often, actually, we see that in the world around Saturn-Mars conjunctions, that all of a sudden we have got power supply issues, or any type of supply issues, energy supply issues. I wouldn't be shocked by that, by the way, because you will also see that Jupiter and Uranus conjunction is getting tighter and tighter around the 10th of April. Jupiter is on 19 degree and Uranus is on 21 degree of Taurus, and Taurus can represent supply issues. So I think this is going to be a topic in the next 2 years, by the way. Mars and Saturn cycle could talk to you about physical attacks on authority figures as well. So often this is kind of like happening with gun or terror attacks. And statistically speaking, Pisces is one of the most dangerous signs when it comes to these type of things. So probably we're going to see some type of physical attacks on an authority figures. Often with Saturn and Mars cycle, we question the reputation of certain type of authority figures, such as their motives. We're going to see that as well. We could see with Saturn and Mars some really heated boardroom battles happening between politicians and so forth. And often it brings an end of an agreement as well, such as, okay, we agreed that, agreements, such as we agreed that I'm going to sign a contract, for example, and then all of a sudden someone just walks away from it or breaks the rules, and then eventually it's not going to happen, and then it brings some discomfort into this situation. But also, this is about how much effort you put into establishing your own reputation. This could talk to us about lack of vitality due to stress as well, or sometimes brute force. It's about superhuman efforts, what we do to preserve something or to cut something out of our life as well. Of course, it is happening in the sign of Pisces, which is very psychological, very much connected to spirituality as well, or obsessions as well as addiction problems. And of course, it brings in the medical fields also. So we will see these medically enhanced type of research or the efforts what we put into against hunger and famine and so on. Also, with Saturn and Mars, we are trying to enforce the law. Now, I think this is going to be happening quite a lot because, as I said, it's happening 9 sign away from Cancer, and the 9th house represents law. Also, it could be talking to us about how the police is stripping things bare. Often with Saturn and Mars, unfortunately, we see fire or attack with fire. It's going to be happening in the sign of Pisces, so we should be expecting some major flooding, for example. But with Saturn and Mars, often it comes with heat waves or some natural type of disasters. And in the sign of Pisces, Pisces represents floods, but also huge rains as well. So I think this is going to be marking some severe weather conditions. In the sign of Pisces, obviously, that's going to be connected to rain, but also tides and huge waves as well. Saturn and Mars could talk to us about starting a very strict routine. It could talk to us about Botox as well, because what happens with Botox, that we're freezing the muscles in the face. Saturn Mars is actually ruling over the boxing industry as well. Obviously, with Mars, we fight, and then with Saturn, we protect something. So it's kind of like the self-defense type of sport. It could talk to us about toxic masculinity, but it happens in a feminine sign, right? So we are trying to dissolve this toxic masculinity. So again, I feel like we're going to see the image of a female politician or someone, a female person who is going to be standing up against toxic masculinity. Saturn Mars in a positive way could really talk to us about heroic movements. Now, especially in the sign of Pisces, which is really a charitable sign. Saturn Mars is a suicidal type of energy as well. It could be representation of inhibited vitality or power of resistance. It represents violence against a member of a society. It could represent muscle pain or muscle soreness or the paralysis of a muscle, but also the manual labor. And in that case, in the sign of Pisces, how it might be playing out is something to do with uh, like the lack of manual workers because they don't want to work for little money. It could represent something to do with mining as well, with Saturn and Mars. So I'm thinking the oil rigs, and I can imagine an accident happening in the ocean. And then what are we going to do to prevent that, or how are we going to clean that up? And then, of course, some type of poisoning. With Saturn and Mars, Saturn is testing our strength, Mars. It could even indicate that the politician is going to go to prison, actually, that Pisces can represent our self-inhibited prison. So that's where that depression is coming into the picture and so on. So Mars and Saturn, while, Mars really activates Saturn in your transit chart currently. So this is pretty much, it started very much when the sun went into the sign of Pisces, because that was the very first time when Sun and Saturn met in the sign of Pisces after what, 28, 29 years. So it got highlighted, Saturn in issues got highlighted there, and then now Mars comes around and then it activates it. So what happens with this Mars coming into the sign of Pisces and then gets activated with Saturn, that, Mars here is not that directional. It's still a little bit dreamy. So it's dreaming about what I want to achieve, but then Saturn says, you know what, those dreams are not realistic. Mars in the sign of Pisces goes with the flow, and then it's kind of trying to find the quickest path to productivity. But then Saturn says, listen, the quicker you are, the more mistakes you're going to be making. So it's not about floating around in a la la land, but you're going to have to create that la la land yourself. So you cannot do things without having a concrete plan. This is telling you that it's not enough just to be sitting on your tasks and dreaming about that it's going to get resolved on its own. You're going to have to get out of the la la land. You're going to have to be less imaginative. And then you're going to have to be dealing with some of the problems. You cannot sweep them under the carpet. This is prompting you to find creative solutions, or keep your eyes on the prize, or make sure that the deadlines somehow are met. This is also about, Mars is trying to cut things out as well. So this is trying to tell you to cut your imaginative side a little bit down and be more real about what is right in front of you. If you do not do that, then it's telling you to explore life mysteries a little bit more. Bring more compassion into your daily interactions. It is asking us to heal a wound within us. It is asking us to look at our emotional patterns, how we react to certain things. Also, positively speaking, it could talk to us about uplifting others, help others, or make feel people seen or understood, and then let people know that they are valued for who they are. So there is that element of a inspiration there. Pisces is a fairy tale, and Saturn is telling you that there is no such thing as a happy ending in a way. Or happy ending is only going to be happening when you are passionate about something. And therefore we're gonna have to get there. Often that is not gonna be happening without any type of healing or any type of imagination that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like this is telling us to pull out of some of the toxic situations what we've got, and we are meant to be starting something new that you haven't tried before. I mean, if we want to make some predictions here, I mean, It's going to be happening in the sign of Pisces. So probably we should be expecting some huge storms and tornadoes. You know, this conjunction is happening, what, 20 days after the sun ingression into the sign of Aries. So this is most likely a very kind of like hot zone. This is probably one of the most important month of 2024. But Saturn and Mars is also about how we overcome obstacles in our life. So Saturn, the planet of heart, tests and limitations, and you are meant to be somehow clearing those out. So that's why the superhuman efforts, what I was talking about, or how we destroy certain type of things, how we destroy, for example, the ocean. This aspect could talk to us about corruptions as well in the world. And I feel like this is going to be connected to somehow travel industries because it is happening 9 sign away. So we will see probably that the oil prices will go up and therefore the plane tickets prices will escalate significantly. And of course, it might be actually just dropping the number of passengers who want to travel, or they're gonna, unfortunately reconsider their options. I feel like it's going to be bringing an attack and terrorism. So we need to be expecting some violence or some sort of action from maybe from a religious point of view, maybe attack towards I don't know, a pope or a political figure most likely as well, or a Supreme Court judge and so forth. Or maybe it's just how much religious people are going to be kind of trying to stand up for their own rights and so forth. But one thing which we see here, though, is that Jupiter is actually sextiling this. So some of us will gain out of these type of energies, and unfortunately, some of us will also suffer from it. Jupiter can bring a big news. And Uranus there, which is the planet of sudden events, something is happening suddenly, and it's going to be shocking us. I feel like this is connected to food also. So the food distribution might be becoming an issue in the next 25 months because it's in the sign of Taurus. So the food prices, starvation, or homeless people, unfortunately, or even Pisces, which is about hospitals as well. So this could talk to us about not having enough doctors or not having enough space, for example, to the sick people, or the sanctuaries overall. Now, also I've noticed that this is happening in the terms of Jupiter. So this conjunction is on 14 degree of Pisces. That is the term of Jupiter. If you do not know what that represents, that's okay. So this could bring in topics of higher educations, or it could bring in, for example, a terror attack against a kind of like a historical type of places, for example, or we are going to be discovering some island, or an island is going to get destroyed, or we're going to find something in the ocean, and there is going to be a historical type of, energy. Maybe we're going to find a new island that we have never found before. And it could even talk to us about some type of different species as well at the same time. So this looks really, really, from that point of view, really exciting. But I would say that Saturn and Mars together is really a challenging aspect, even though with a Jupiter and Uranus sextile to it, often Jupiter just magnifies things. I mean, it could be even bringing in some financial crashes in the world as well, especially if that happened in 2004 also. I did look at what was going on in the world in 2004, and actually, 2004, around May, the European Union expanded by 2 new members, and those were Cyprus, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Poland, Slovakia, and Slovenia. And this could actually indicate that they are going to be accepting someone into the European Union who is not even in Europe. I can imagine something happening in the next 25, 26 months, or it could indicate that one of these countries are going to be leaving the EU. There was a stadium bombing happening in Russia. So this could talk to us about an attack against Russia, which might kick off, another war, unfortunately. Also, I'm just wondering that usually May, if I'm not mistaken, is the month when the Eurovision happens, which is obviously kind of like a cultural festival. And it is happening 9 signs away from Kansas. So that's an international type of event, what it could represent. So I'm just wondering if something major is going to be happening around the Eurovision festivals. If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be in May, but I might be wrong about that. Also, around that time, we had the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Haiti begins. So Pisces is connected to actually somehow to peace, because this is the exaltation position of Venus, and Venus is the planet of peace, and Pisces wants unity, and then it wants to bring people together. So we might be able to see something around that too, actually. So, guys, this is my intake on the upcoming Saturn and Mars conjunction. So if you want to know how it plays out for each of the rising sign and to get a little bit more specifics, then you might want to be joining my YouTube membership program. And I will see you there soon. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.